If you give life to this canvas, it will curse you. Forever.
I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, but director and co-writer Federico Zambagoli brings us The Well. And this one stars Terrifier 2's Lauren LaVera, and yeah, it's a gothic, gory, horror buffet of a movie. What is the story? Well, LaVera's character is a restorer of art, and she's an American who travels to Italy working for her father, who is an established and well-respected art restorer. And she is contacted by this Duchess, who has got this kind of large mansion, and there is this painting which has been damaged by fire, and she's hired to restore it effectively. On the way, she meets 3 other Americans who are studying in the same area, in a kind of studying the kind of the biology of the area and things like this. Once we get to this house, you know, it's very posh, it's very gothic in nature, and you know, there's a certain sinister air, you might say, but that is only just the beginning, because there is all sorts of horrors that await these people. So this movie has many strands of horror. You know, we've got witchcraft, we've got torture porn, we've got kind of demonic entities, we've got curses, we've even got killer clowns. So there is a lot going on in this movie, and it's a far more extreme movie than I was expecting. This movie legitimately made me wince a few times, let me just say that. So let's talk about it. What works in this movie's favour? So this is an Italian movie, but it is spoken like 95% in English. Our main character is American, some of the supporting characters are American, and the Italian characters speak English for the most part. So it's quite accessible to like American and UK audiences, but it definitely has an Italian feel to it. Obviously, Italy has produced some absolute bangers in the past in regards to kind of horror movies and stuff, and this definitely has that European feel to it that you would have enjoyed if you're a fan of kind of like Italian gore movies. But at the same time, I think it's maybe a little bit more accessible to maybe people who aren't as au fait with that. But let me just get the big thing out of the way. This movie was way more gory than I was expecting. At first you think it's going to be some sort of highfalutin kind of arty piece about kind of ghosts and, you know, mystery and, oh, did we see something? Oh no, this one is full on, you know, Christ, did I just see, well, what just happened on screen? So if you're a fan of the old red stuff, and Lauren LaVera obviously picks particularly kind of gory movies. I mean, it's obviously you expect that from the Terrifier film. Here I wasn't quite as expecting quite as much. And as such, it almost is more shocking in a way, because it doesn't feel, you've seen a few films like this, and they don't get quite as extreme as this one. And I was like, geez, and it's like staying on this shot. It's like, it's not, the camera ain't going anywhere, it's showing you. So yeah, if you are a fan of you know, bloody VFX, and this movie does a good job, I think, of making some believable VFX, and therefore it's effective. I often talk about like fun gore, where it's kind of like, you know, Brain Dead or Evil Dead style, lots of kind of blood. This isn't. This is kind of like, oh, that looks kind of like, that looks painful, you know. So yeah, the VFX are very well done. People, I mean, I have seen some people go, oh, dude, I don't really like depictions of torture and stuff. You ain't gonna like this movie, let me just say that. But yeah, it's a little bit more extreme, but in a kind of like, in a way that it's done very kind of well in regards to its technical abilities, and it has this kind of this, as I say, this kind of gothic feel to it, which I think is more akin to slow moving kind of like sort of ghost stories or romance almost in a way. So it really hits in a way that I think maybe a movie like Terrifier doesn't, where you've got, you know, a slasher walking around with a knife and stuff. This is kind of like, I don't know, to me it was a little bit more sort of a classic cultures, but in a way that I think works in this film. So that was all very good. And I think the setting of this kind of small Italian little hamlet is fantastic. You think, okay, who's involved? You know, what's kind of going on? And then, without kind of spoiling the movie, and I didn't know anything about this movie before sort of going into it, and I would suggest, I mean, I'm not going to tell you really much here, but I would suggest you go in as fresh as possible. Even, I would say, avoid trailers, to be honest. Because there's lots of reveals and you don't know what is going on exactly, but there's many facets to this. There are plenty of characters who end up getting involved or are involved, and there's different sort of types of horror, really, as I've kind of mentioned. So there's a lot kind of going on, and I think it's easy to follow, but it's kind of like it's playing its cards one at a time. And it makes it for somewhat of an intriguing story. I wouldn't say once you kind of understand the concept, it's not like it particularly doesn't have much more surprises after that. But before you get there, it's kind of like, so what is going on? So that was all quite fun. I think the acting is all solid here. I think LaVera does a good job of playing somewhat of a meek character here, and she's just very kind of polite and courteous, and she's happy to be there, and then she's just kind of thrust into this dire situation, and I think she, it's a believable kind of step up. I kind of quite like that. So that was all kind of sort of quite fun, and it's well shot as well. I mean, this movie on a technical side is just well put together. I've kind of talked about the VFX, but just things like the sort of cinematography, the kind of the sound design, all that is all very well done. So it's a very kind of well put together movie. Any issues I have with it? I think if I had to maybe pick one hole in this movie, maybe it would be the script to a degree. And again, this is going to be somewhat of a vague interpretation of me telling you things because I don't want to spoil stuff. But there are some things here that I thought, I just don't know if that fits with the rest of the kind of the tone of the movie. I think the last act, it borders on getting a little bit silly at times. Again, I don't want to give specifics, but there's some instances where I think it just ends up being just, I don't know, that kind of, with the setup that we've had, it just seems a little silly. There are some things that seem just not sensible, and again, this is going to be very vague, but there's some characters here who need to get something done by a certain time, okay? And why have they left it to the last minute? They've had ages to get this done, but they have left it to the last minute. It doesn't make sense story-wise why these characters would leave the thing that they need to do to so late in the day when they've had plenty of time to get this sorted beforehand. It's a little bizarre. And I think once you kind of understand the concept of what is happening, from that point on, it's relatively business as usual in regards to what's going to happen. Who's going to live, who's going to die, what's going to happen, where's it going to end up. I think, probably about the halfway mark, you'll probably get an idea of what the actual status quo is of the characters that are involved. You think, okay, I'm pretty sure this will happen, and you'd probably be right. So that's, it doesn't continue with the guessing game quite as much as maybe the first half. But overall, it's a very solid movie, very entertaining. It's not going to be for everyone if you don't like, quite violent scenes. And this movie has some quite graphic depictions of violence and gore. It's not quite as out there as Terrifier and Terrifier 2, admittedly, but that is doing that on purpose. But it kind of is packaged in a movie which is, you're maybe not expecting it as much, but it hits kind of hard in that respect. Particularly one. particularly one character who really goes through the ringer, I would say. But yeah, it's a very, very good movie. I would recommend it if you can kind of stomach the maybe the more gory side of things. So it's an 8 out of 10. I think this movie was very well done. I enjoyed it a lot and I would recommend it. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Please do leave me a comment and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.